Matt Bertulli, it is awesome to see you, man. I appreciate you carving out some time.
Dude, it's so good to see you. It's been a minute. It's good.
I was bummed that you didn't show up at the last event I was at, but I do intend to get out to see you in Kelowna.
Yeah, I had a geography and a timing issue, as in it was very far away and it was in July, which is like the best month of the year here. So I was like, not a chance.
Yeah. Well, you didn't miss out on weather. We were in South Carolina at an amazing resort, but it rained the whole time and it's basically a swamp.
Yeah, that was the other. I'm like, I'm not leaving primetime British Columbia lake life, wine life living to go to Southeast United States in July.
Yes.
No, like my business partner, Brad's got a place in Florida. He's like, don't do that. he's like, that's a mistake.
Well, I didn't get to see you, but hopefully you enjoyed yourself anyway.
Oh yeah, man. It was a great time.
So we met years ago, and at the time you were running a company called DMAC Media.
Yep. DMAC Media.
Yep. Give me a little background on that or how you got into that, because I want to bring it to today, but I think that that's like super relevant and probably informed a lot of today also.
Totally. Yeah. So I bootstrapped that company over about 10 years. That was largely like user experience design and development for like specifically for e-commerce. So I started that company in like 2007, 2008, somewhere in there, like right in the middle of the last recession shit show. And so I'd left I was at a company called NetSuite.
Sure.
Pre-IPO, we went public and I just wanted to do my own thing. So started up, it was classic service business, right? Trading time for dollars, lots and lots of like project work, a lot of enterprise stuff. So I'm a software engineer by trade. And, when I started that company, like here in Canada, e-commerce was just like super nascent. It was like very, very early days. This is pre-Shopify. We were building on things like Magento. Like it was way, way before Shopify kind of blew up. And yeah, I just like got, I guess like a good lesson in luck and timing. Market just exploded. So I think at one point, if you were to walk through a shopping mall in Canada, I bet you I had 20, 30, 40% of all those retailers as clients.
Oh, wow.
Just
so you were working with larger brands specifically to build out their e-com presence.
Larger brands, typically brick and mortar, bringing them online, and typically Canadian. So when I sold the company to private equity in 2018, we were just in the process of finishing up and going live with Staples in Canada. So like
awesome,
big stuff. Like we ran government sites for like paying parking tickets and traffic fines and all that crap. Like we did a lot, like our platforms, we were processing like well north of $1 billion a year in transactions on our sites.
Awesome.
So
can you give me an idea of scope and scale of that company, headcount, revenue, whatever?
Headcount. So when we sold, we were about 110-ish people, 8-figure business, good exit, like typical classic private equity roll-up exit. So like we were bought and smashed together with 2 other companies. They basically like acquired and rolled up, and we were now like, I think 300 and some employees, well into the 9 figures in revenue. And yeah, I mean, that was a beast of a service business. Like, so that company today is called Bounteous. And I think they're in the thousands of employees now. And it's been since sold again. So like from one private equity group to an even bigger private equity group. So like, it just, there's these PE firms that like, this is what they do, right? So they buy, they roll up. It's like classic PE math. It's like 1 + 1 is 13 somehow.
Right.
I don't understand. I wish I knew it. It sounds like a good gig. I can't do math that way, but so that when I had that company, that I was actually the first. So while I owned my last company, I was the first angel investor into Pela, which is what I run now. And that was like 5 years ago. So it's kind of about a 1-year overlap between old business and current one, where I was invested in current one, but not yet running it. So like sold the old one and then became sort of like active, full-time CEO of Pela right after.
All right. So I have a couple questions. One is the PE move. So you sold, and sort of the general mechanism for PE, if you're a founder and they're buying in, is that you sell a portion of it. Sometimes you stick around and run it. Sometimes you don't. And you get some money off the table, but then you're invested in the roll up and the future sale of the whole aggregate of companies. Is that how that worked with you?
Kinda. So I think I got really lucky and a great acquirer. And so when we sold, I think it was like 90% of the deal was paid up front and cash. And then 10% was rolled over into the new entity. But the important part to the whole deal was I got to go home on day one. So the deal came together because I had met a guy who was like a president of a large agency in the early 2000s. And he worked with this PE group to do a big roll up, right? So he was an older guy, like I call him gray hair. So he's probably in his late 40s, early 50s, and he showed up and said, look, this is like, we can put together a deal where I'll effectively take your job. So there's no earn out and you don't need to stick around. So the day the deal closed, I went in the next morning and they kind of gave me a handshake and said, you're fired. You can go home. And I did.
Is that because one of the other companies they were rolling up also had a CEO that was going to take over everything?
So in that case, we were not the platform company, right? So there was a bigger version of us in the States that was the platform. So we were being bolted onto them. Actually, we were all being bolted onto them. So they had leadership, they had everything, right? So kind of, I got sent home because not only did they have that, but then they had this other guy who was coming in to run our office and our operation and our division. So I would say, like, for people who own a service business, it was an unusual exit, right? Like, this not what you described, where there's some kind of earnout, like you get some amount up front, some amount is like either called vendor financed or like it's on the back end. That's a much more typical deal from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Right. And mine was just like unusual.
Well, and 90-10 is also unusual, right? It's more common.
And like
PE
the deal was,
take.
The deal was architected though to like get me out because Pela was taking off. Like we were, while I was selling the first company, this one was making a jump from like zero to its first $1 million year. And then we did it in like 5 months. And then like we jumped from like zero to, I think it was like $7 million was our next big hit. And that was like from zero to that was like 18 months. So it was kind of like, this was going very fast. And I just needed to, like, as my wife said it, I'm not Elon Musk, so I need to pick a child. And it was literally her words. She's like, pick a kid, man. You can't do both. And she's right. I couldn't. Like, it was, running one big 100+ person company and then and then also trying to scale up like a very fast growing brand it's just such different skill sets, but like different type of focus, right? And different type of energy that you're putting into those two businesses. Like one was in, steady, bootstrapped, profitable, like just steady Eddie, grow it. And then Pela was like hanging onto the tail of a dragon for the first few years. So trying to do both was just too hard.
Let's talk about Pela. So first of all, I thought that I didn't realize you did not start that. So you were seed for it, but somebody else started it?
Yeah, Jeremy founded the company, I want to say like 11 years ago. And kind of when I invested, it was, I was in pre-revenue. So like he had a product, he had a material, and he had made a product, which is the phone case, out of this like fancy ass material. But he'd yet to really commercialize it. Right. So like I came in thinking, okay, I think I really like the material. I don't care too much about the product. It's like the material science was super cool. Like my thesis was the world's going to have to move off single-use plastic at some point in some degree. Compostables are likely going to be a part of that. Not all of it, but part of it. So like I was betting on the broad movement. And so I wrote the first angel check and I helped commercialize the product and get it off the ground.
Okay. And so, I have to ask, because I've always wanted to know this. What is the name?
Yeah.
is Pela? Because I hear Pila Bella. It's always confusing to me.
We don't
What is
care.
the name about?
Yeah, it's like Nike. I don't care. So the name, I believe, I don't even know what language it comes from, but Jeremy basically found this word that sort of means like apple peel, like to peel an apple. And he thought it fit. So like he named the business when I came along. I'm not a big, so it's funny. As a marketer, I believe in brand, but I'm not a brand, like a beauty type of, like, I'm not that kind of brand guy. Like I care about, the stories, and I care about what customers say and that kind of stuff. Like I care a lot about that. But when it comes to like being a stickler over like brand things, like some people are absolutely anal, like every pixel matters. And I genuinely don't give a shit, like I care about the customer experience.
Fair enough. Well, and that actually is pretty loud in the Pila Bella brand. Specifically because you said this fancy ass material that he made. So the foundation of this, and as I knew it, was you had invested in, apparently, or started this company, Pela, and made fully reusable, biodegradable phone cases. Yeah,
they're backyard compostable. They're impressive. They can go away in a backyard compost in like under a year. So like zero waste is kind of the core tenet of that product. And then we kind of took that material and turned it into like Apple Watch straps and AirPod cases. And, we've gone, like we experimented with eyewear, like sunglasses. We did, like, we've got a good product development team that sort of looks at a lot of stuff. It's like, what can we use our material science for? So we took the material and we did a deal with a brand called Qalo, Qalo. So they're like the big brand in like silicone rings, like workout, like people who are super fit. So like the CrossFit people, based I think out of LA. So did a collaboration with them. We're using our material to make their product now. Like a whole line of product with them. So I'm doing a lot more of these brand collabs. I'm working with a company on a bag. Basically like what else can you look at and say, if you can make that compostable and zero waste, like we've got to be able to solve some of the bigger stuff, like the high velocity, like your food packaging and that kind of thing. And people are like, we're not the only ones. We just tend to focus on fashion and accessories and things like that. So that product and brand is all about like consumer goods made from better materials that have a better end of life.
Yeah, that's big. It's an interesting place to start from because, and you mentioned this, I kind of want to dig into that because you mentioned this accelerated growth in the beginning and going from 0 to 1, 1 to 7 quickly. How much of that do you think had to do with the foundational value set around, I want to create sustainable products versus the tactical implementation and operation of the business?
That's a good question. I mean, never thought of it that way. Just purely thinking out loud here. I don't know that you can have one without the other. So like we had a very consistent set of values, both internally and as a brand. And we're pretty hard line on them with that particular brand. And I think that is what drove a ton of our marketing. So like when you got really tactical in our business and you looked at like, say, the kinds of advertising we were running, like the creative, right?